Hello, Empowered Warriors. Welcome to episode 16. When you were a child, did you ever hear the expression, "I'm rubber, you're glue. Whatever you say bounces right off of me and sticks to you"? Well, today we are going to explore that concept a little deeper. Because it turns out that that little expression has a lot of truth to it. If you have been following me for a while, you are probably already aware that everything we do, say, and the energy we emit affects not only us, but other people as well. So if you're not happy with your current state of affairs, if you crave change, if you want more money, better health, and overall, a successful life from the inside out, then this is not an episode to miss. So warriors, stay tuned. Welcome to the Empowered Warrior Podcast. My name is Angela Noel, and I am an intuitive coach, acupuncturist, and Chinese herbalist. This podcast is all about empowerment, meaning how you can maintain your personal power in order to have the best life beyond your imagination. An empowered warrior is someone who has the identity of a person who is healthy, radiant, and free from all suffering, and has the tools ready and available to move through life's obstacles with confidence, ease, and a sense of freedom. In this podcast, I bring over 16 years experience in Chinese medicine, countless years of self-development, and a passion for helping others find their personal power. I will be discussing just a few of my favorite topics regarding health from a Chinese medicine perspective, brain habits, and spirituality, so that you can quickly pave your pathway to freedom and be free from the chains that have kept you stuck. My intention with this podcast is to serve as a guide for warriors who want to form a healthy foundation of body, mind, and spirit, and sustain it by changing who they are being from the inside and having a stronger connection to their higher selves. My goal is to help students end the unnecessary suffering that they place on themselves by having poor health habits, negative thought loops, and a lack of self-worth. I'm so happy that you're here. Hello, Empowered Warriors. Welcome to episode 16. Wow. My podcast is already Sweet 16 episodes, that is, right? So thank you as always for tuning in. I am, as always, so grateful for your support, for your love, for your reviews, for your little messages saying, hey, I listened to this message or I listened to this episode and it really impacted me. So all of that feedback, I'm hearing you. I appreciate you. And if there is a particular subject matter that you want me to talk about or explain further, just message me, DM me on Instagram at I am Angela Noel. If it feels in alignment to the podcast, I will definitely consider doing an episode on it. So if you are like many people, you want success in your health and in your business. Am I right? And first of all, with today's subject matter, when I learned this stuff, first of all, I had absolutely no idea about it. And when I really started to embrace it and live it, my life dramatically changed. Dramatically, y'all. And you know how much I love drama. Just kidding, you guys. You probably already know that I avoid drama like the plague these days. So today's topic is about how your thoughts, actions, and words affect what happens to us in our lives. I mean, it's so powerful. And if you're like many people who want to live a successful, full life, and you are ready to end the struggle, the fear, and the overwhelm, chances are you are going to love this episode. However, there is a disclaimer. Today's episode may or may not be very empowering for you. I say may or may not because this episode is not going to be for everybody. Here's why. I've been working with people for a long time now, and what I've discovered is that people fall into one of two camps. There are the ones who say they want change, but their actions don't match their words, and there are those that want change, and their actions match their words. This episode, quite frankly, is for those who are in camp 2, the second statement. You could be 15 years old and listening to this, or 115 years old. Age doesn't matter. Economic status does not matter. Where you live does not matter. How you've lived your life previously to today absolutely does not matter. Up until today, you could have lived in camp number 1, and that is okay. That was many of my clients until they were ready to let go of the pain or the mediocre and get into thriving. That was also me not too long ago, holding on to my Boston office, unable to let go of the attachment, but miserable and unhappy that I spent so much of my waking hours working a business that I was not 100% aligned with. And that is why many people today are afraid to quit their job and start their dream business, or do whatever it is that they dream of. Continuing a life of safety and security because they fear not being able to pay the bills. They fear the what ifs, the future. It's like the weight of the world is on their shoulders. But I invite you to really tune in here, and I want to invite you to consider the consequences of remaining in Camp 1 for another year or so. Where will you be if you continue on this path of fear, lack of clarity, or, quote, waiting for the right time, unquote? If it resonates with you, I really invite you to tune in and get out your journal and consider where your life will be if you continue to remain in the same camp that you are in now. It may not be obvious to you right now, and if it isn't, please keep listening and convince yourself. But if you have an open heart, if you are willing to learn new things and you are willing to change, you can and will be in camp number 2 before you know it. And while I understand if you identify with being in camp 1, I want to let you know that it is not your fault. As a species, we tend to get caught up in all the BS that is associated with identities. For example, quote, I am an anxious person, therefore I will always be an anxious person. And this is what I can expect as a result because someone else told me this, and therefore this is my future, my world, and my reality. Or here's another example, and I've mentioned before that I really don't pay attention to the news, or I really don't get caught up in the drama on social media. But I've been doing some market research lately for my business, and while I was researching, I came across this comment on a Facebook post. Quote, I have weak lungs. If I get exposed to the virus, I will die. Now, first of all, as a disclaimer, I am not encouraging irresponsibility here. Okay, no irresponsible behavior. I am not discouraging anyone from seeking medical care if they need it. And if you need to go to the doctor because you aren't feeling well in any way, by all means, do the right thing and be seen, okay? But what I would like to do is to pick apart what this person was saying, because I think it's a trap that many, many people get caught up in, and as a result, it can affect them in a very negative way. And since you were all empowered warriors, I want to make sure that this does not happen to you. So this person said, quote, "I have weak lungs." And while that could very well be true because she has seen evidence of it in her past, I'd love to know how you feel her body is going to respond as a result of her always thinking and saying that she has weak lungs. And here's another thing to consider. If she continues to tell herself that she has weak lungs, she may or may not make choices according to that identity. For example, she may decide to exercise less because she doesn't feel her lungs can handle it, even if it's something that statistically could be very beneficial to her lungs. And here's another thing that may or may not be obvious to you at this point. When she states that out loud to anyone, but especially on social media or in a situation where there's a bunch of strangers, she was casting that energy of weak lungs into the collective. And people are going to hear that, and they will, as a result, believe that as fact. Am I right? So now you have all this energy and intent about your reality that is not only coming from you, but it's coming from other people. Does that make sense? So let's examine the second part of what she said. If I get exposed to the virus, I will die. Now again, I am not encouraging anyone who has weak lung qi, aka a weakened immune system of any kind, to be irresponsible, okay? My intention for doing this podcast is to help my warriors form a healthy foundation of mind, body, and spirit so that they can be the empowered warriors they always knew they were, okay? So let's examine that second part of what she said, and here is the big and hard question. So she said, if I get exposed to the virus, I will die. So, do you think this person was speaking in a way that was serving your health and well-being in the highest possible way? So think about that. Okay, I'm not casting any judgment. I don't know this person. I just want all of you who are listening to really consider. This is not about her, this is not about me, but this is about you. I want you to fully consider every action, every thought, every word that you put out into the collective consciousness. Because words are powerful. Your thoughts are powerful. So if you're the type of person that is often entangled in your old, outdated identities that are not serving your highest good, let me ask you, what do you think are the consequences of you holding on to these old beliefs and identities? Where do you see yourself in a year from now if you continue to hold on to these identities that do not serve you? And finally, with the idea of you are where your attention is, where is your attention, and in what ways is your attention either serving you or not serving you? You may or may not have noticed yet, but in case you haven't, this episode is all about the words you say, the thoughts you create and believe, and the actions you carry throughout your life. And in case you haven't realized it yet, everything you say, think, believe, and do in your actions will affect your life. So what direction do you want your life to go in? Last year, I was at a family event and talking with some of my relatives. There were a few happy occasions we were celebrating while remembering a relative who had recently transitioned. While in conversation, one of my relatives asked me if I was showing any signs or symptoms of an autoimmune disease that tended to show up in the women in my family. When I replied no, one of my relatives replied, "Well, not yet, you haven't." Okay. So at the time, I didn't say anything. I did not want to give that conversation any more power or energy. I just dropped the subject and energetically moved away from the conversation. However, a few hours later, I found myself still thinking about that conversation. Should I have said more? Should I have given a more stronger response? Should I? And sadly, warriors, I was totally shoulding all over myself. And I realized that I was annoyed with myself for not using that conversation as an opportunity to speak my truth into existence. Why didn't I say anything? And why did I allow my relative to say that without me speaking up for myself, for my health, for my wellness, for my body? And the reason I am telling you this story is because chances are you have also been in this situation, right? Now, there are a few things to discuss about this interaction that you may or may not be aware of that I feel are really important to discuss when it comes to your health, wealth, and well-being. First of all, I'd like to discuss the relative's remarks. While her remark about me not contracting the disease yet may seem harmless to many, or just like a passing comment, I want to shed light on why it is really important to be aware of what you're saying and thinking at all times when it comes to other people, and more importantly, when it comes to yourself, your health, your well-being, your success. So let's break it down. First of all, she said, "Not yet, you haven't." First of all, let me ask you, what kind of energy is that person putting out into the collective? Whether she realized it or not. Was she setting intentions of good health and well-being to me and my genetics? And secondly, and most importantly, knowing that we are all mirrors of each other, what intention was she setting for herself when she mentioned that I haven't showed up with symptoms of the disease yet? So again, when you say that about somebody else, it's reflecting something about yourself. You're putting out that energy into the universe, right? So once that energy is created, it cannot be destroyed. So every thought that you have is energy. You're putting that into the universe, and you're casting that energy not only to other people, but onto yourself. Okay? Again, I'm rubber, you're glue. So let me give you another example. Earlier this year, one of my coaches was hospitalized for heart failure. And because this guy is pretty popular in the coaching world, he has many students and fans. And this coach of mine, he's very transparent and open and honest about his health and his history. So it's not a secret. I'm not revealing anybody's dirty secrets, or I'm not breaching confidentiality, is what I'm trying to say. Now, when all of this was going on, as you can imagine, many of his students were expressing concern for him. And after it was announced that he was in the hospital and recovering nicely, one of his team members requested that while he was in recovery, that we pay attention to our thoughts and language in order for him to have the energy be as pristine as possible as he recovered. In other words, instead of saying, "Poor guy, I hope he gets better soon," we were guided to say, "He is strong and he is already recovered," etc., etc., etc. So we were guided to send him strength and light instead of worry and despair. Does that make sense? And in our society, when somebody gets sick, the norm is to worry and to ruminate and to tell other people how terrible it is that so-and-so is sick. And let me remind you that just because something is normal doesn't mean that it is for the greatest good for humanity. Okay, so just because something is normal doesn't mean it's the right choice or the right option. And when it comes to you, your health and your success, it may be obvious at this point that if you want good health, if you want success in your business, and if you want a great life, not only is it important to be mindful of your thoughts, words, and actions in regards to you, but it is also important to send out good vibes to others. So really quickly, here are ways that you can do that, okay? Number 1, when there is a disease of any kind of negative circumstance in the family or in your circle of friends, don't assume so-and-so is going to get it because it, quote, runs in the family. That is a bunch of BS and is an outdated way to model your beliefs. Number 2, when someone in your life has success or makes a lot of money, wish them well. Be happy for them. Be genuinely happy for them. Celebrate with them. Celebrate for them. Send good juju their way. Jealousy and resentment will only bring more of what you don't want to yourself and will not contribute to healing humanity. Also, as a side note, if you find yourself jealous of another human being, first of all, don't do it. Okay? Don't do it. And second of all, jealousy is the universe's way of showing you what you are capable of. It's kind of like I look at jealousy now as a motivator. If I find myself envious of somebody else, I look at it as, this person is showing me what my potential is, what I can do in my life. Okay? So after all, if somebody else has it, why can't you? And number 3, focus on what you want. If you want great health, no matter what your state is, focus on that. Some people say, well, Angela, this is so hard. I am sick, or I am this, or I am that. Remember, you will always have the ability to shift your attention by changing your energetic state. And as a friendly, loving reminder, warriors, what you focus on expands, not only for yourself, but for others as well. So warriors, that concludes this week's episode. I really hope you enjoyed tuning in today. And if you did, please take a screenshot of this episode and share your takeaways and tag me on Instagram at I am Angela Noel. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Empowered Warrior podcast. It is an honor and a privilege to have you as a listener. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast and would like to help others pave their pathway to freedom, end their disempowerment and suffering, and become an empowered warrior, please share this podcast with your friends and family. Also, it is my intention to help humanity grow and evolve to their highest potential. So if you really enjoy what you're hearing, please help me spread the word by leaving a review in iTunes. Thank you again, and I am so grateful to be able to serve you in this very exciting way.